Good evening. Thank you for coming. I'm Tim Devereux, and this is my Bike for Peace talk. Over the years, I've done about 7 rides that you could count as rides for peace. 5 with a group, 2 solo, 5 about peace and 2 about climate, 4 by bike, 2 by trike, and 1 by tandem. There's my trike there.
Wow.
Okay,
Right.
so 2012, Recycle the Bases with Yorkshire CND. 2014, Bikes Not Bombs, Yorkshire CND again. 2015, in the summer, Yorkshire Remembrance Challenge. And later in August, the Laudato Si Climate Ride. 2021, Pax Christi Pilgrimage for Peace. And 2021 later on, Pedal on Cop. And last year with Tor Nærland, the celebrated Bike for Peace person from Norway, 222 miles in the north. Okay, so the first one was Recycle the Bases during Keep Space for Peace Week. Unfortunately, Yorkshire plays a key role in US-led missile defence and space warfare. And Yorkshire CND and Friends highlighted this and its implications during 3 days of International Keep Space for Peace Week and UK Drones Week of Action. The bike ride connected the Yorkshire Star Wars bases of RAF Fylingdales and Menwith Hill, and highlighted their connections with US missile defence and use of drone and space technologies in the US's continued push for full spectrum dominance. I noticed that among the topics discussed during our stops was the attempted containment of China. So not a lot has changed over the last 11 years. I joined the group at Pickering and pedalled the 39 miles to York and then on to Menwith Hill the next day. I particularly remember riding into York. Here we are at Moulton. Food is very important for cyclists. Here we are in York because 12 cyclists with flags fluttering make an impressive sight. We also made the headlines in The Guardian. That's Wetherby. If you look very carefully, you can see, because we're in Harrogate, a tiny handmade notice. We're outside Betty's, which is just behind the War Memorial, and it says scones, not drones. Okay, so we made The Guardian. This is Martin Wainwright. Those gathering at Menwith Hill will be joined by a second demonstration which invokes the spirit of the old Northern Clarion cycling clubs, which united the freedom of spinning across the moors and dales with free thinking politically about a freer world. There were 12 plus experienced cyclists with us. Overnight stops were in Quaker meeting houses and people's homes. There was a support van / broom wagon, a well-organised ride. Though I think this was the ride where one anarchist, very keen to resist petty rules, insisted on riding in the right-hand lane on narrow, high-hedged country roads. No cyclists were damaged. 2014, Bike Not Bombs. This was Leeds to Harrogate and then up to Menwith Hill. And let me quote from the information for cyclists. Hurrah for bikes, hurrah for Yorkshire. Come and join us as we celebrate the grand depart in style. We've taken the slogan, be part of it, literally, and we'll be doing our own cycle route from Leeds to Harrogate the day before Bradley & Co start theirs, joining CAAB's Recycle the Basis demonstration at Menwith Hill, then camping over for the night to watch the cycles pass the next day. Sound good? We'll be cycling at a pace not quite as fast as Bradley, but you'll need to be relatively fit. We'll have a support vehicle and a bike mechanic on hand should a disaster strike. So on the day, there were about 15 cyclists, including a couple of youngsters, and a vibrant pre-tour atmosphere. The weather started sunny, then went downhill, but it was great to join the Campaign for Accountability of American Bases at their annual Independence from America Day at Menwith Hill. We camped nearby and made our various ways home the next day. Due to Tour de France road closures, I had to divert via Wetherby, extra 20 miles on my route with camping gear. All good, clean fun. The ride had good publicity. The send-off from the middle of Leeds in carnival spirit, with cycling very much in the news on the day before the Tour de France started in Yorkshire. There were fewer people to see us when we got to Menwith Hill. The US tends to build their spy bases in remote places, and I was very pleased to get there. But it was cold and wet and horrible by then. Okay. This next one is somewhat grandly titled Yorkshire Remembrance Challenge. I did this solo ride over about 3 months. Never forget, never again. The idea, in November 2014, I visited the blood-swept lands and sea of red installation at the Tower of London. It marked 100 years since the first full day of Britain's involvement in the First World War. 888,246 ceramic poppies, one for each of the British and colonial soldiers killed in World War I. I couldn't take that number in, it was just so huge. I began to think about a personal way of commemorating these soldiers, perhaps walking or cycling a yard for each one. That would be just over 500 miles. Then I talked to my middle son, Luke. He thought of the fallen troops as lying down. How far would I need to go to pass by all of them? I looked up the average height of British World War I soldiers, 5 feet 6 inches. 888,246 times 5.5 divided by 5280, 925.25 miles. That's only a little less than the end to end, Land's End to John O'Groats, which is 960 miles, and that's a popular cycling challenge. But it gives you an idea of the slaughter. The practicalities. I wasn't in a position to undertake a 2 or 3 week Land's End to John O'Groats ride, so I decided to ride about 10 miles every day and take about 3 months. I started my Yorkshire Remembrance Ride on 1st of May 2015 and finished on Sunday the 26th of July, so 87 days. Never forget. We can remember the fallen of the Great War, the war to end all wars, but then not in need of any practical help. However, some soldiers returning from Britain's more recent wars desperately need help. So one of the causes I raised money for was Combat Stress, the Veterans Mental Health Charity. Originally called the Ex-Servicemen's Welfare Society, it helped those suffering from shell shock after World War I, so that seems appropriate. Never again. Any news bulletin shows that the scourge of war is all too present in today's world. I fundraised for 3 anti-war causes: Christian Peace Education Fund, Movement for the Abolition of War, and Yorkshire CND. I used email and Facebook to tell people about the ride and wrote it up on my website. The rides, if you look at the pictures of on my website, they're mostly views from the canal, towpath, or pictures of the various bikes I used. But I also visited a number of war memorials, and the unforgettable words of Wilfred Owen come to mind. My friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory the old lie, dulce et decorum est, pro patria mori. And so they're ending with some poppies as well. Bit more upbeat was the 2015 Westminster Laudato Si climate ride. The pilgrimage was in 2 parts. Phase 1, London to Newhaven over 3 days in August, and phase 2 Dieppe to Paris just before COP25. And I only took part in the first one. The ride organisers, Barbara Kentish and Father Joe Ryan of Westminster JMP Group, wrote, Pope Francis had just issued his inspiring encyclical Laudato Si, calling for all to collaborate to save our common home. We thought something dramatic was needed, something like a 250-mile cycle ride to the UN talks themselves. So we were taking to the road a few months ahead of the Paris talks began to raise awareness of their importance. The route used cycleways where possible, hence no traffic to worry about, but frequently poorly surfaced, so slow speeds. About 15 cyclists set off from Westminster Cathedral. They included experienced cyclists and newbies. My brother Chris, who's in the middle of the picture there with the sunglasses on, discussed the best way to broach a conversation with someone riding with their saddle uncomfortably and inefficiently low, and also mishandling their gears. There were quite a few mechanicals over the 2 days I rode. Punctures were easy to deal with, but we were defeated by a broken saddle. Given the range of ability, the group split at times, not good for morale or navigation. We were welcomed by parishes along the way, lunch stop, which is here, mass stop and accommodation, which helped to spread our message. There we are at Hawley, where we stopped overnight. And that's the group, not including me. They did get to Paris. And I think that doing it in 2 bits was quite helpful because they learned quite a few things on those first few days. So 2 years ago, still in the midst of COVID, so a pilgrimage for peace. Pax Christi encouraged members to make their own pilgrimage for peace from the 15th of May 2021, International Conscientious Objectors Day. Walk, cycle, run, pray, take your pick. So this will come as no surprise. I chose cycling and did a dual fundraiser for Pax Christi and Alzheimer's Research UK, the latter in memory of my super keen cyclist brother Chris, who died in 2020. He had twice ridden the Camino de Santiago from Le Puy, France to Santiago de Compostela, Spain. It's well over 1,000 miles. I joined him for the last 5 days of his 2002 pilgrimage. And my plan for this ride was to match the daily distances we'd done then. But rather than the pilgrim hostels and the little hotels of northern Spain, I returned home each night. I aimed to visit cathedrals and ancient abbeys and a couple of military bases. I thought it would give me a bit more scope if I used the car on some days to reach my end point from the previous day. So my route was day 1, circumnavigating Bradford, indulging in some Strava art. I hope you can make out a CND sign there. Day 2, York Minster and back. Day 3, car to York and then bike to Revo and back. Day 4, car to Revo, bike to RAF Fylingdales and then back. And finally, day 5, up to Menwith Hill, and I do mean up, and then back via Harrogate. And the 5 days covered 277 miles. The ride was good as a fundraiser for both causes. The big CND flag served to advertise that I was riding, at least in part, for peace, and as a visual warning to motorists that there was a cyclist on the road. Lessons, what would I do differently next time? A companion or two would be good. I'd definitely check that the Google Map lady was directing me along actual roads. There's York. Yes, this was the path that the Google Map lady said, oh yeah, fine to go up here. I'd say it's more suitable for a mountain goat. If you look right in the middle of the picture, that's where I took the previous picture from. So yes, it's a real pain when you've got to take your panniers off to get the bike over the gate, which won't open. So This is Revo Abbey on day 4, and 10 minutes later it was like this. So if you believe in miracles, there's a nice little miracle for you. Day 5, Linley Wood Reservoir, and then Menwith Hill. Back to Leeds Cathedral. Another thing I'd do differently is I have the OS maps before I set out, rather than buying them the day before, when they would have got me to my destination in 3/4 of an hour rather than 3 painful hours. Pedal on Cop, late 2021. Pedal on Parliament, who organised these rides, say, "We pedalled on COP to take our climate message to the world. Over 1,000 cyclists converged on Glasgow for the Global Day of Action on Climate Justice on November the 6th, 2021, as Pedal on COP and our This Machine Fights Climate Change slogan went global. Thank you to everyone who helped organise, spread the word, and most importantly, turned up on the day to join us. 21 different feeder rides defied headwinds and sheeting rain to deliver cyclists from as far afield as Aberdeen, Inverness and Dumfries, and from all corners of Glasgow. The numbers turning out for almost every ride defied organised expectations, with Kelvin Way filling with bikes of all shapes and sizes as we assembled ready for the march. This was a day that was too important for people to be put off by a little inclement weather. So obviously I had to do a bit of preparation for the tricycle. And you can see that it's actually quite big compared to other things. Study how the movement for the Abolition War flag is held there, and then look at how it's held after I'd adjusted it to accommodate with the wind later on in the day. I love this picture. That little kid is just having so much fun. World leaders at the summit may be ignoring the role of cycling and sustainable transport in fighting climate change, but as we joined the biggest demonstration this century on the streets of Glasgow, we sent a message that was surely too loud to be ignored. These machines fight climate change. I joined one of the feeder rides, which started with coffee, soup and sandwiches, welcome given the horrible weather. I was fortunate to be using my recumbent. I could sit down all the time, while those on 2 wheels had to stand both before the march and at the frequent stops on the way. My feeder ride was very sensibly organised. On seeing the weather forecast, they had cut the route. I was a little concerned as a small child with no obvious parents fell off twice in the first couple of months, but once the march started, we owned the roads. Despite losing my phone along the way, the other MORE members found me at the end of the march. Not my hardest day of cycling, but definitely one of the coldest and the wettest. Despite that, there was a fantastic feeling of solidarity among the riders, cheerfully determined to make sure the politicians got the message. And that was, I've studied this pixel by pixel, and I'm not in it because it goes too, I was near the back and it was too far back. But eventually we got to the end. Very pleased to get there. 2 people have entered the waiting room. View, sorry, I'm just let them in. Okay, right. And sorry, okay. Bikes for Peace. And just, yeah, here we are, Bikes for Peace. Okay, this was last year, and here's a bit from the press release. Blind Norwegian peace campaigner Tor Nærland, along with Asa Simonsen, 79, and Tordis Landvik, 72, and Pudsey tandem rider Tim Devereux, finished their 5-day, 222-mile ride in Bradford on the 1st of September. This is at the start in Leeds. Tornayland, that's him there next to the Lord Mayor. President Bike for Peace is almost totally blind, but is a keen cyclist and has organised similar tours all over the world. Tora rode with me on my tandem, while Norwegian cyclist Asa and Tordis rode solo bikes. Other British cyclists joined us at various stages of the journey. Here we are at a pub in Otley, and Torre gives this Pedal On for World Peace book to every mayor he meets. And we met many mayors. You might recognise Fabian Hamilton here. And this lady here is Christine, did a brilliant job of map reading the first day when we had most cyclists pedalling out of Leeds. Bike for Peace is a non-governmental organisation in Norway that works for a world without nuclear weapons, for peace and disarmament, to improve the lives of disabled people, and for measures to combat climate change. This ride was co-sponsored by Mayors for Peace, a global organisation founded in Hiroshima in 1982, and local support organisations include Yorkshire, CND, and the Quakers. We cycled across the north of England, starting with a send-off from Friends Meeting House in Leeds, and meeting mayors en route in Skipton, Carnforth, Preston, Rochdale and Bradford. The Lord Mayor of Bradford, you can see him just in the middle there, just pick out his chain. Councillor Barted Love welcomed the group at the finish with a civic reception at City Hall. The ride was reported in local media, and I had before and after interviews on local radio with a very sympathetic interviewer. So ride practicalities. In group rides, it's very tough on inexperienced cyclists if the mileage is too high. The group needs to be very clear that stragglers have a companion with them and wait at the top of hills. I'm all for children being encouraged to ride, but grown-up needs to ride with them. Cycle paths provide welcome relief from busy roads, but are often poorly surfaced and are slower and prone to provoke punctures. Phone apps like Google Maps and cycling-specific navigation aids like Komoot and Ride with GPS are a boon for planning and navigating, but batteries can run flat even with a power pack, and so I think paper maps are essential. A broom wagon or car or van to pick up the weary and transport luggage is a very desirable option. And a good toolkit is a must. With zip ties to fix broken flagpoles, bamboo cane was no match for the Glasgow winds on the COP26 ride. Are they effective? There's a very medium is the message feel about Bike for Peace rides, especially if they also have a climate change angle. A group of cyclists is more striking than a similar sized group on foot, on cycleways, towpaths and so on. It's easy to have conversation with passers-by. Yorkshire CND's stall in Leeds City Centre at the beginning of the 2014 Bike Not Bombs ride was a great way of reaching out to the public. Meeting mayors in 2022 proved to be a great way to generate additional publicity. You often get tea and biscuits, which is cyclists do like to eat. Like it or loathe it, promoting rides via social media is essential, but don't ignore local media. I was very pleased to see how effective the more press release template, which is on our website, how effective that was in garnering local press and radio coverage. On my 2021 solo ride, I learned a couple of things. On day 3, 10 miles and many hours longer than planned showed me that if you keep pedaling, you get there in the end. I think I already knew the way to get up hills. If it's too hard, change to a lower gear. If it's still too hard and you're already in bottom gear, go slower. On the last day, I was feeling pretty weary, and I saw the next hill was steeper than 1 in 7, looking at my OS map, but there was a fold, so I could only see that little bit there. I had no idea it was as long as it was, and just kept going. Sometimes we don't need to see the destination or the difficulties on the way, but just keep going. A lesson for peacemakers, perhaps. Thank you very much. You can unmute yourselves and say something if you like.
Unmute yourself and applaud.
I have a question, Tim.
Yeah.
Unmute.
What is a Clarion style bike ride?
Right. There are still bicycle clubs called Clarion, something Clarion. And originally they were basically lefty socialist cycling clubs. They're not so political now, but if you see a bike club with Clarion in its name, it's quite old, and those were its roots. And my brother was in one, but I can't remember what else it was called apart from Clarion.
All right.
Wow.
And I think Martin Wainwright's quote there gets the feeling, you know, you're out and you're free on a bike in a way that you aren't on any other form of transport, perhaps walking, but you can go 3 or 4 times further on a bike.
Right. Excellent.
Tim, how effective do you think mass cycle riding, which is designed to impede traffic, say around outside Parliament, might be? Do you think it's a good medium, or bearing in mind the latest law? Would it contravene the new police regulations applying to protests, do you think?
I wouldn't be surprised if it does, but it would be pretty effective, and cyclists don't have number plates. So
the red lights aren't a problem, really.
I always stop when you reach my age, David, and I think you're older than me.
Yes.
Red lights are a boon because it means you can stop and have a little rest.
Very good.
And would you be allowed to have an electric hub on the bike?
I think that's fine. I intend. I hope Teresa's not listening to this, but I intend to get an electric bike this year.
Right.
Hey.
I'll have a chat with you about that because I can recommend a cheap way to do it.
Excellent.
Right.
Excellent. Okay.
Okay.
Anything? Anyone else for anything else?
Oh, that was Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good. I'm a bit confused on my iPhone. I'm not coping that well, but never mind. Yeah, I'm enormously impressed. Wonderful. Lots and lots of miles and lots of commitment. Yeah, I do remember very much that daily log of your 10 months, whatever much it was a day.
Oh, yes.
3 months. That was incredible. I was very faithful then. Do you remember? I was kept up with you.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
Yes, that was fun.
It was.
Rachel Proudfoot asked, "What have I got planned next?" It's not a peace ride, but I have 2 brothers who both died in 2020. Chris already commemorated with the Alzheimer's ride. Tom had Parkinson's, so I'm going to be pedaling later on this year from Leeds to Glasgow over about 5 days, camping, and I'm intending to do it on the tricycle because I've never actually been terribly far on the tricycle, and it's quite good at carrying luggage. So that's what I'm doing sometime this year, to be announced, as they say.
Excellent, brilliant, good work.
I just turned my video back on.
Oh, good.
So that you can see I am really here. I haven't been hiding away somewhere. But I'm eating my dinner. That's why I turned it on.
Right. I just noticed that the my cunningly arranged C&D flag and nuclear weapons are illegal have just collapsed.
Oh,
I hope that doesn't mean anything.
that's a bad omen.
What a shame.
Tim, how much work did you do for each one in terms of publicity and contacting the mayor in advance and all that sort of thing, or did you have someone else do that for you?
Right. That last one, the mayor, Bike for Peace mayor's thing, we had someone from Mayors for Peace was contacting all the mayors on the way.
Okay.
We saw, I mean, they were brilliant because we saw at least one mayor every day. Unfortunately, I'll tell you why, unfortunately, 2 on the last day, 1 in the morning and 1 at the end. That meant that we actually had a deadline for the end, which we missed by about 25 minutes. But he was nice and he stayed around and fed us and everything. But that was a good hook because we got some local press coverage about that. But yeah, a lot of planning. Whatever I do next, I would definitely plan it more carefully than I did for the 2 years ago one, because I was completely lost on day 3 in the middle of absolutely nowhere.
Gosh.
Well,
And go on.
I was to say that just makes it more interesting, Tim.
Yes.
It was a splendid presentation. Sitting here, I'm sorry we're sitting here eating, but there we are. No, it's really good.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Any more for any more? We are recording this, so the skilled video editors will top it and tail it, and I'll stick it on. We'll put it on make it available, I hope. Okay.
I remember the Clarion Choir at Menwith Hill.
Yes.
It's all the same
That's
outfit.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Clarion is the word that unites all the lefties.
That's right. Yes. Yes, and they wear a subtle shade of extremely bright red.
That's the ones. Excellent.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And
Definitely.
We definitely did. Very
cheerio for
impressive.
now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Tim.
you. Well
Bye.
done, Tim.
Thank you
Thank you.
very
Very good.
much.
Thank
Bye.
Thank you.
Very good. Hey.